Hey ladies, it's episode 111. Today I'm talking about some observations that I have made watching the best intuitive eaters I know. It's my 4 kids. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast. My name is Jennifer D'Amato, a certified intuitive eating counselor, coach, mom of 4, lover of all things pink, and I want you to live your best health and your best life. I believe the way we can all do that is by finally walking away from diet culture, by relearning what your body needs, reconnecting with your body's biological signals, and redefining what health is on your terms. This show will shed some light on sneaky ways diet culture has infiltrated your thoughts, your family, and your well-being. My heart is that no matter the episode, you walk away feeling informed, inspired, and encouraged. Let's go. So often when someone asks me about intuitive eating and just wants an example, like, well, what do you mean? What does it look like? I always talk about toddlers. I always talk about kids before anyone's done any damage. And when I say anyone, I mean me. I was the source of really changing the trajectory of my kids' eating habits, of them deciding they needed a diet or how they felt about their body. It's all on me. Now, I know that's not true for everyone, but I do feel that's true for me because my daughters are homeschooled and they've always been homeschooled. So the person they spend the most time with, other than each other, is me. It really has been me. And for the last 16 and a half years of parenting, I really had taken them down a road that I'm grateful I saw and shifted. They did spend a lot of their younger years seeing their mom on a diet. They saw me at the table not eating the same food that they've eaten. They've heard me pick apart my body. They were part of my very disordered eating, my orthorexia, because I would drag them to the gym. And if I could get 2 hours of the childcare, I used every last second. And then I'd come home and go for a walk at night or a run in the morning or something. They saw it all. The reality is me breaking up with dieting, walking away, becoming an intuitive eater, this being my business, I believe has changed the trajectory of my daughters' stories, of their health stories, of how they view food, of how they view their body, of how they see bodies even in this world. I believe that through my healing, they, oh goodness, I hope they never have to deal with what I dealt with. And we have these conversations. It's very open. It's very open to talk about food and body. This is what I do, but it's also just who I am. And I don't want food to become a taboo topic. And I don't want to avoid talking about body image issues because they're real, because they hear them from their peers and they've heard them for a long time, and because they witnessed their mom for a very long time living a very different life. So I know that responsibility's been on me, and I'm not in any way, beating myself up about it or living in this place of shame because of what I was teaching them. But instead, I'm celebrating the fact that everything has changed. Because my girls were, significantly younger when I was completely immersed in dieting, orthorexia, I believe that I shifted things early enough that they actually don't remember necessarily all of the meals I missed. If I'm really honest, all of the meals, all of the pieces of birthday cake, all of the celebrations that I was present but fearing food, I'm grateful they don't remember all of it. However, I actually started observing my daughters. I've observed them, in younger years, and of course, observing them as they're teenagers, because 3 teens and a preteen, food becomes more significant. Body image issues become more prevalent. So I observe them, and I've learned several things about intuitive eating just from watching them. So the first one I want to share is my kids are naturally intuitive eaters. Even some of the mixed messaging has not completely derailed them. And again, I do feel like I shifted things early enough where there was some undoing that had to be done of, I mean, sugar. Let's just say it. Like, I restricted my kids' sugar because I was scared of sugar. My kids were never scared of sugar, and I started creating a fear in them that didn't exist. So what I saw was when I restricted their sugar, when they got around sugar, they ate to the point of almost sick. Like, they would have so much. And of course, for me, when I was in the height of my disordered eating, in the midst of dieting, it confirmed what in my own thought that, see, you can't be around sugar, you'll overconsume, sugar's so bad, all of this, all of these messages. And what happened when I let go of these false beliefs, when I let go of restricting my kids' sugar, they had a little pendulum swing, not as big as I noticed with my clients or with myself, where they still had some, more than they may have before, but then it settled down to where it's no big deal. They have something when they want it, they don't if they don't, and everybody moves on. My kids were probably the best example I could have ever asked for to see what happens first when you restrict and how it will always lead to overeating, overconsuming, binging, whatever term you need to use there that you see within yourself or that exists for you. It will always connect. And when you remove the restriction, yes, there can be a pendulum swing. It can kind of go the other way for a little while. I have some clients literally right now in the midst of feeling into that pendulum swing. But the balance part comes. The balance part comes when we don't restrict. So I'd say that was the first and probably one of the most important observations and lessons I learned from my kids who are all intuitive eaters. The second one actually goes back to when they were toddlers. And it didn't occur to me how beautiful of an experience, being home with my kids and watching them eat was until I was out of diet culture. So when my kids were toddlers, you try all these different foods and you're putting things in front of them. And we really have been a big advocate for keep introducing foods. And I do hear from moms a lot like, well, my kid's a really picky eater. My kid's a really picky eater. Yeah, my kids went through really picky eating as well. Like, it felt like really picky eating. And what it really is they're trying to decide what they like. There's also some pushback for autonomy. Like, I want to decide what's best for me. So there's a pushback just because as moms or dads or caregivers, we're saying, I want you to eat this. But the example that I lean on is if I introduced something and they really did not like the taste, they didn't eat it. It wasn't, I have to suck this down. There's an influencer on Instagram, YouTube, all over the place. And she talks about how she doesn't like salmon. Like, she really hates it, but she has to eat it. You should be eating this. She uses that messaging. She is a grown woman telling other grown women, if you don't like it, eat it anyway because it's, and I'm using air quotes here, good for you. This is not intuitive eating. This is a dangerous place to go. And this is not intuitively how your body is. That when we're born, when we are this, toddler age, this young age, these formative years, all of that, we actually do such a good job of saying, I don't like it. I don't want it. My kids would throw it on the floor. Man, our dogs were so happy back then. They just wouldn't eat it. They'd close their mouth. They'd clench it shut. It was the most beautiful intuitive eating. Frustrating as a parent, yes, but there was always something else. There was always something else to eat. They just didn't like that. And we've kind of had a, please try it, take a couple of bites. What don't you like about it? I'm always curious. Is it the flavor? Is it the texture? Is it the seasoning? And now, my kids, that's become the norm. They just tell us, well, I really don't like the texture of that. Or When you make this, I don't like that seasoning. I can think of like a chicken recipe. And I love that they tell me, even now, teenagers, I just don't like the flavor of that. And of course, conversely, if they liked it, I always say this, they wore it. Can you picture that? When your young one, your toddler, your little one, when they really enjoyed a food, it was like all over them. They just couldn't get enough of it. They were happy. I can remember my daughters smiling while eating. If you have not been around a toddler, no one has, influenced this sweet child. No diet cultures entered their mind. They're not thinking about their body and, really stressing about food. They smile when they're eating. It's actually a pleasurable experience. And I would say that's the third piece is you can have pleasure in the meal and eating experience. My kids are great examples. And really, it was something that kind of helped nudge me out of diet culture. I wanted to enjoy the mealtime, the meal experience. I wanted it to be pleasurable. My kids were so good at this when they were toddlers. They're so good at it now. So, working with clients on intuitive eating, the reality is it's not just about the food. And I'd say it's actually very little about the food, because our thoughts about food are all tied up in thoughts about our body. So this is another area where I've just been making observations, what my kids say, what they don't say, what I see in them, and just kind of this evolution from when they're young and there's really very little body issues I noticed, to how there's some things that are innate, or at least they seem innate, where as your body's changing, right? You're starting puberty, you're in the midst of it. Oh my gosh. Can we just all agree that we'd never, ever, ever want to go back to that season of life once you're out of it? Watching your body change, no matter when that is difficult. I work with clients right now, adults, grown women, who of course have watched their body change. And there's a lot of thoughts that come with that. There's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of messaging attached to that. It's the same in puberty. And that can be influenced for the good or for the bad. So the messages here are that you can be healthy at every size. The messages here are that you are strong and powerful and beautiful right where you are. And also that your body is meant to change. That is a truth I want my children to walk away with from this home. I want them to fully believe our bodies are not meant to stay the same. And maybe that's easier to see when you go from toddler to teen, but something happens when we go from teen into adulthood and we think that doesn't happen. It definitely is not something that occurs to us when we go from our 20s to our 30s to our 40s, our 40s to our 50s, and on and on. We think our bodies should just stay the same. Like somehow that process should just stop. It's not true. And it's something I've really tried to just leave space for in our home, that your bodies are meant to change, because of course I have 4 daughters whose bodies are changing all the time, and not just getting taller, but so many things are changing. So I do think there's this natural, innate thing, this thing that just happens of where you start noticing your body more. So maybe you start questioning, is that normal? Am I okay? Is this all right? We find ourselves at a pediatrician's appointment and maybe there's some body commenting going on because they use the scale, because they use BMI. And this is something I've been very protective of. My kids right now, they go on the scale currently at the pediatrician's office. We don't know the weight. We don't talk BMI, period. I have a great pediatrician for that. And I know that's not always the case, but what I noticed a few years ago was the numbers and the conversations around weight started having a real negative impact. And my kids were just walking through puberty. They had, I call it the puberty belly. And they never heard a word from me about it. Never heard, you need to exercise more. You need to be doing this. What I saw by backing off, was things came naturally. My two oldest right now go to the gym and work out because they want to. They enjoy lifting some weights and getting stronger. And I love hearing, their accomplishments there. And they're doing exercises they enjoy, not because they're trying to shrink their body, but because they have a goal in mind, one who enjoys kind of this almost like kickboxing type thing. And, she has a goal for how many sets she can do. And another one who wants to build up some endurance because she likes, playing football. So I love this. I love that it's come so naturally. But I know that I had to put some safeguards in place and have some conversations because they'd seen their mom in a much smaller body. They've seen me tired. They've seen me exhausted. They've seen me angry just to get there. They've also seen me put all that weight back on and then some and embrace the body that I'm in. So I believe that we can learn something from our children, especially when they're young, especially when those messages have not come in. And that's really where the goal is to get back to that place where intuitively you eat, intuitively you move your body, where you trust that you know what your body needs and wants. That's how my kids were. That's how my kids are. What's also really fabulous, I'm going to give you this little bonus here. There are times where my children, and I'd say each of them at different times, makes a very active choice to eat more than their body wants. And then they feel terrible and not in their minds, not in their thought, not about who they are, not about, the size of their body and they're feeling, guilt and shame and all that. Nope. They're just like, I wanted more, I ate more, and now I realize, oh my gosh, that feels so terrible. And they just move on. They move on with their life. It does not hold them back. It does not, overwhelm them. They're not experiencing all this slew of negative emotions. It is beautiful because I always say we have a choice. We always have a choice to eat beyond fullness. I've talked with my kids about that. Like that is an empowering choice you can make. But when we do that, our body usually tells us, hey, can you not do that? This doesn't feel good. But it is a choice we make. And they just kind of live with it and then they move on. It's amazing. Amazing. They are the coolest intuitive eaters. And I have the privilege to be able to observe them on a regular basis. Now, I understand you may not have that right now. That might not be something in your scope, and you may even have kids in your home, and you're like, I'm seeing the opposite happening. I'm seeing some struggles here. I'm passing on my own struggles. Well, I want to offer you something, and it's something I only offer about once a year, and it is my group coaching for busy moms. I realize that moms are doing all the things. So you can't always make it to a live coaching session, but you're going to get that recording. The January 2021 group, the moms had multiple kids. They had toddlers at home. It was too much to try to fit everything in live. So if they could come, they did. But they loved that they could always go into the recordings, get all the handouts. Everything was provided for them. I created this program to help you stop stressing, stop obsessing about everything that you eat. What you're going to end up being able to do is trust your body around food, even feel like a normal eater again. You're going to learn how to let go of the need to diet. You're going to overcome this focus you've had on your weight and on your body. You'll even learn how to cope without overeating, binge eating. And this is the part I know you're waiting for. You'll be able to talk with your kids about a healthy relationship with food. And you'll be able to stop passing on those old food rules to your children and experience food freedom in the life you desire without dieting. I love this group. I love working with moms because my mission is to change generations. I firmly believe that you can be part of that as well. And diets stop with you no longer worrying about your kids, dieting, restricting, regaining the weight changing their set point, becoming obsessed with food and what they're eating, how much they're eating. It all ends right now. And think about that. This group starts January 2022. You'll have the first 3 months of the year dedicated to changing generations to come. I created this because it's exactly what I needed. It's what I wish I had had years ago. Years ago. The only way to enroll is to hop into the show notes and book a call. It's going to say right there, wherever you're listening, it's going to say, book a call with Jen. That's what you need to do. Let's talk about what struggles you're currently having, what you'd like to see change and shift for you, for your family, and then make sure that this is the best next step for you. We start in January. Don't worry, you'll get through all the holidays and the new year, get settled back in routine. And then those first module lessons are going to come out and you're going to be able to come live or watch the recordings. You're going to have a group chat. You're going to have so many amazing elements that this is going to be the year that you went, everything changed. Everything changed for me and for my family. I get so excited at the idea of future generations never dieting. Because the truth is, if we never diet, we never go through the restrict overeat cycle. We never stress about what we're eating. We don't become obsessed with food. We don't use food for our emotional stuff that we're going through. We never have to worry about the regain, lose, regain more, all of that cycle. We don't have to do it. Your kids don't have to do it. Your grandkids don't have to do it. It's a complete game changer. All right, I look forward to talking with you. Be sure to head into the show notes, click book a call with Jen, and let's talk about this group program. I don't want you to miss enrollment, and I don't want to close enrollment without you in our group. All right, until next time.